Cases of malaria have been found in the US for the first time in 20 years. And based on reports, more people will be infected with the disease in the country, causing a lot of people to panic. We are yet to recover from COVID, and then now we have to handle this. Wahala no dey finish. Growing up in a country that malaria is very common, and also adding the fact that I'm a medical doctor who trained and practiced there for a while, I believe I can help in my own little way. So one way to handle this is sharing my knowledge with you guys, because knowledge is power. So in today's video, we're going to talk about 11 important facts about malaria that you need to know. The first fact is that malaria comes from the combination of two words, mal and area, which generally mean bad air. That's because the people that named it so observed that people around swampy areas came down with the disease, and they assumed that it was from breathing the air from the swampy areas. Currently, we know that that's not so, but we have to understand that they, from their limited understanding or from their limited knowledge, were able to link malaria with those particular surroundings. Despite the fact that we know that malaria has nothing to do with the air we breathe, we still employ the word because there's sense to it. Further down the video, we would understand why this makes sense. So let's dive into the second fact, which is, it was until 1878 that an English physician by the name of Ronald Ross was able to demonstrate that malaria was as a result of being eaten by a mosquito. There are different kinds of mosquitoes, but the female Anopheles mosquito is the main vector for the malaria parasite. And the mosquitoes were commonly found in places with stagnant water or very bushy areas. So you see why the swampy assumption made sense, because swampy areas contain stagnant water, which is a perfect site for the mosquitoes to breed. And in that case, you will find a lot of mosquitoes around there, and it's easy for you to come down with malaria. The name of the parasite is the Plasmodium parasite, and there are actually 5 different types of Plasmodium species that cause malaria. These include Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium ovale, Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malariae, and Plasmodium knowlesi. And the next fact is, humans infect the female Anopheles mosquitoes too. The infection is in quotes. And that's because a female Anopheles mosquito must suck the blood of someone with malaria parasite in it before they can transmit it to another person. When a female Anopheles mosquito bites someone that is already infected with malaria, the life cycle of the Plasmodium parasite continues in the body of the female Anopheles mosquito. So the malaria parasite needs the female Anopheles mosquito to continue its cycle before it infects another person. So that's why you find out that there are places that have mosquitoes, the female Anopheles mosquitoes, and they are being bitten by these mosquitoes, but they still don't come down with malaria fever. And that's because these female Anopheles mosquitoes are not infected at all. So yes, human beings also infect the female Anopheles mosquito, which in turn infects other human beings too when they bite them. The next fact is that malaria is commonly found in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, but it's also found in some parts of Southeast Asia. So in such places, you find more people coming down with the disease. I am from Nigeria, and malaria is a very common disease. It's one of the most common diseases. In fact, it's the most common disease we usually treat in hospitals. There's no way you walk in Nigerian hospital that you don't treat malaria on a regular basis. There's no way. However, in the course of traveling, infected people can move around with the disease itself. The next fact is that you should also note that human-to-human transmission is very possible. It usually occurs during blood transfusion or sharing of swabs. However, it can be transmitted from an infected mother to her unborn child during pregnancy. So that's why in regions where malaria is endemic, treatment for malaria is mandated during antenatal visit to reduce those chances, because it can have serious consequences to both the mother and the baby. We'll know this further down the video. The next fact is that the most vulnerable set of people include children under the age of 5, pregnant women, and also people that are immunocompromised or people that have lowered immunity. An example of such people include those that are highly malnourished, those that are having diseases that lower their immunity, such as HIV/AIDS. And the next fact is that the symptoms can be mild, moderate, or severe. Usually, symptoms occur within 9 to 40 days after being infected. Some people can be asymptomatic, whereas others have symptoms such as headaches, malaria, fever, and the rest. But in some cases, they're very severe symptoms, depending on how early you treat the disease or the state of the immunity of the person infected with the disease, such as convulsions, loss of consciousness, organ failure, and even death can occur. In Nigeria, where I come from, some people don't even need to go to the hospital. They already know how to treat the disease. But then it's something that is serious that, if not tackled on time, could be very, very devastating. Then the next fact is that malaria is one of the most deadly diseases in the world. It's said to infect about 200 million people annually. And among those 200 million people, around a million people are being killed yearly. As at 2021, it's being reported that around 617,000 people died from malaria within that year. So it's serious. And the number has decreased compared to earlier years, but it's still a problem to us, which leads us to the next fact. That is, malaria is both preventable and treatable. So you can prevent yourself from getting infected or contracting the disease. And then even if you contract the disease, it's treatable. It's a relatively easy disease to treat, especially when you present early. And the major mode of prevention is to make sure that you are not being bitten by an infected mosquito. And you can do that by making sure your environment is clean, cutting down bushes, or taking care of swampy or stagnant bodies of water. And you can also use mosquito nets and insecticides too. These all go a long way in helping people by preventing them from coming down with the disease. And the next fact is that, despite the fact that there has been a cure for malaria for a long time, physicians and health workers still face the problem of increasing drug resistance by the Plasmodium species. So new drugs are emerging to be able to overcome the resistance that the microorganisms develop. So drugs that were being used to treat the malaria before have now been found out to be not as effective as earlier when they came out, and that's because of the resistance. So it's still a problem. But the good news is that as technology is evolving, more effective treatment options have been discovered, and that's helped to reduce both the morbidity and the mortality rate of malaria. And the last fact is that there is a vaccine for malaria. Although it's in its early stages, but it has been rolled out in a few countries, which include Kenya, Ghana, and Malawi. There's still a limited number of these vaccines available, but they've shown very promising signs. So with the vaccine, it will really bring down the rate of infection, because we know what vaccines do. They boost the body immunity to be able to fight these microorganisms in such a way that someone does not come down with the disease. So hopefully, as these vaccines are being developed and are produced in mass number, malaria one day wouldn't really be a problem, and it will be eradicated, just like smallpox has been eradicated from the face of the world. So that's all about today's video. I hope you learned something from it. Malaria is not something you should be scared of. If you notice a symptom, especially if you're somewhere that is becoming very common, just walk to the hospital and be tested for it. The earlier you're tested for it and being treated for it, the better it is for you. And also know that prevention is way better than cure. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with as many people as possible, especially people that are going to find this video very helpful. And if you're yet to subscribe, please subscribe and turn on the bell notification. There's no need to be afraid. Thank you, and I'm going to see you in my next video. Bye.